Welcome, everyone. My name is Deanna Frithenson. I am an economic development advisor with Rural Manitoba Economic Development. And today we are going to be speaking about pathways and perspectives on rural immigration. I'd just like to introduce my Zoom assistant for today, or production assistant, and that's Fumiola Abiola Odutola, and she's our marketing coordinator. And we also have our executive assistant on today, Aaron Gonzalez. Now, just to remind you, as you're entering on the call, we are recording, and we have asked for video consent, and you will be able to find our recorded video on our website and on our YouTube. We will be sending out a link after. Sorry, I'm just distracted by all the doorbells ringing in my ear. We will be sending out the recording after the session today. Now, I'd just like to do our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our Brandon office is located on Treaty 2 lands, the traditional homelands of the Dakota, Anishinaabe, Oji-Cree, Cree, Dene, and Métis people. However, our team will be working throughout Manitoba in the lands of Treaty 1 through 4 and the southern portion of Treaty 5. RMED respects the treaties that were made on these lands and where we will work together. We commit to reconciliation along the pathway to economic prosperity. So please put questions in our chat box. We'll try and answer them throughout the session today. Our timeline for today is about an hour and a half. I hope you can stay on. We've got lots of great things to talk about. And today's title is Pathways and Perspectives on Rural Immigration. I'd like to introduce our host, Don Body, Manitoba Association of Newcomers, serving organizations, and he works at the small support center manager, supporting small communities. Now, Don, he began his work with Manso in March of 2017, and Don has lived in rural Manitoba for more than 30 years and has worked and volunteered in the nonprofit sector for about 25 years. Don understands the value of expanding his capacity through building a network of professionals, peers, organizational partners. Now, I'd also like to introduce our panelist guests, and we have Christine Diors, Economic Development Officer from the Assiniboine Valley Regional Community Development Corporation. Can you give us a wave, Christine? Thank you. And we have Shelley Voth. She's the immigration coordinator for the City of Morden's Community-Driven Immigration Initiative, a program that was developed in partnership with the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program to assist Morden's businesses in meeting their labor shortages. Now I'd like to introduce Mark Sawatsky. He's the Business Development and Immigration Officer in Winkler Stanley Economic Development Corporation, where he provides management and leadership in the role of business development and as an immigration officer. Stephen Chabada, he's the executive director from Parkland Chamber of Commerce, and Stephen is dedicated as a community leader and an advocate for Dauphin, the city of Dauphin. And Stephanie Harris is the economic development officer in the town of Altona and the municipality of Rhineland, and the director of the Altona and District Chamber of Commerce. She also administers the federal government Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program. Now, I'm going to turn it over to you, Don, and if you could provide your perspective and stats on rural Manitoba.
Hi, everyone, and it's an honor to be here. And you can hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. If you don't hear me, sometimes I rest my thumb over the microphone, which is not helpful at all, but I've learned I do that on Zoom meetings. When we say small centers in the immigration world, that means rural Manitoba. And in Manitoba, everything outside of Winnipeg is a small center. So it's really easy for us. Some of the other provinces have it way more complicated. I also want to say that last year, 25,365 permanent residents landed in Manitoba last year. And of that 25,000, 6,360 came to rural Manitoba. So that gives you a perspective of the numbers and what's going on and how immigration is changing Manitoba for the better and way more than just economic reasons. I know we have an excellent panel who are brilliant in what they do and knowing their communities. However, because of the size of our panel and our limited time, we could easily be here for a couple of days if we wanted. I'm going to be limiting folks and try and keep your answers to around 2 or 3 minutes. And in another part of my life, I'm a basketball ref. So if you want to boo me, please go ahead. I'm used to it. I get booed lots and I'm okay with it. The first question is for all of you. How do your specific immigration program and your community work? What is the nuts and bolts of your program and how is it unique? I'm just going to pick on people as I go across my screen. And Stephen, you're first. Is that okay?
Absolutely fine. Yeah. Thanks. I'm not sure exactly how unique our program is, but I'll just kind of go into it a little bit, but not knowing how everybody else is working. But yeah, we have a program that is in partnership with many municipalities across the Parkland region. So we have representation from many communities surrounding Dauphin, and we also have some partnerships where RMED it sits at the table. We also have Regional Connections that sits there, so settlement service, and just took a big collaborative approach to this. Instead of having one center or just the city of Dauphin and the RM or something like that, we want to expand that and make sure that there's a regional approach. That's our perspective. That's coming from the chamber, that we want to make sure that the catchment area that we're working with, that the communities are being looked after, and there's a lot of industries and a lot of sectors and small businesses that need that support and help. So we wanted to make sure we were helping a lot more than just our immediate area. So maybe unique in the sense that we have a lot of partners and a lot of municipalities sitting at the table, and it seems to be working so far. We're pretty young into this process, but we'll see how it goes. But it's been great so far, and it's worked out quite well, and really excited to see the next few months how those play out.
You answered the question perfectly. And after I asked you, I thought that's not fair to you. You're just really starting your program, but you did great. Mark, you're next on my screen, and we'll reverse the order at different times, but you're next.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So I guess what makes our program unique, I'll start with that, is we're a regional-based immigration platform. So that means we look at the entire region, the labor needs of the entire region to determine a labor forecast, which forms the heartbeat of our program. So we have to do a labor survey. I'll give you a little bit of the kind of nuts and bolts of it. So we have to do a labor survey of our business community, where we identify what are those common jobs that need to be filled in addition to the ones that need to be filled right now. That creates a substantial labor list for us, which is identified to attached to a knock code listing. And this really forms the heartbeat of our program. And so what we do is we have an online application process. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it's at our website. So the website is wsedc.ca. And if you clicked on immigration, you'll go down there and it'll kind of explain the whole program. And so all our applications come through that source, which is important because it gives us a single source of applications and we don't lose applications through multiple sources. Accessing our program, we kind of have 4 primary sources of applicants. We have direct through the portal. Anybody around the world that's interested in applying can access there. We also have immigration consultants who access our program when they have somebody that wants to come to our area. And then we have community initiated and business initiated. So that's if somebody in the community knows somebody somewhere and they want to support them when they're here, they can talk to us and we can look at their application, which is really great when it comes to adaptability for someone coming to an area. Business initiated works the same kind of way. If they have somebody in their company that knows somebody with a skill set that business needs, then the business community can access our program, which expedites the process in terms of getting people directly to their business. Quickly, we limit our portal openings. Like if you click get started now on our application, it would give you a banner that says when's the next time we're going to open it, because what you will find is you'll have significant demand, maybe more so than you can take on. So we open and close our portal based on a certain number, usually around 200 applicants. And then we have some minimums of the program. If I've got another second, I'll just quickly tell you what those are. How am I doing for time, Don? Am I okay?
Yeah, like 45 seconds.
Okay, perfect. So there's minimum requirements to the program. So an age requirement, an English score requirement, a work experience requirement, because we don't require a job offer or exploratory visit. So they need to have the skill set, a post-high school education of 1 year, and then settlement funds. And what's really important about our program is that the applicant has to be labor market ready, because they don't have a job offer. That means when they come here, very quickly, they could attach to the job that we're bringing them here for. How'd I do? Make the end?
Great. That's great.
All right.
Really good. Stephanie, you're next.
Okay, great. So Altona Rhineland has been participating in the federal government's Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program since 2019. This program creates a path to permanent residence for foreign workers who want to live in our community. The pilot is designed to support economic development within our community and strengthen our local businesses' capacity to develop and retain a skilled workforce. Some of the advantages of the program that I believe are unique compared to some of the other provincial programming would be that applicants are arriving in the community with a full-time permanent job waiting for them. I will later in this webinar dive a little deeper into what that process looks like and how applicants find work in advance. The applicant's spouse and children also get to join them in Canada right away. And the spouse receives an open work permit that is geographically binding to the town of Altona and municipality of Rhineland. The community is also selecting the best fit applicant who will contribute economically, socially, and culturally, and also long-term. And then last but not least, the pilot includes a community retention strategy to help welcome, settle, and integrate the applicants and their family in the community through community mentors as well as workplace mentors.
Excellent. Really good. Thank you. Shelley.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Shelley Both, and I'm from the city of Morgan. Stephanie is kind of unique amongst the rest of us that she's working with the RMED program, and the rest of us would be pretty similar as far as minimum qualifications and some process things, especially regarding MP&P, because of the partnerships that we have with the MP&P program. What would make Morgan unique is probably that we are quite an old program. We've been running since 2012. And it's been pretty steady since 2012. So for the last 12 years, I guess, if I'm doing my math correctly, then we've been kind of adapting to changes of MP&P minimum requirements and process, tweaking things along the way, and have just been running fairly steady. Over time, I think that our program has become more focused on retention, and that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later in this webinar. And as far as maybe some differences as far as the nuts and bolts stuff, as far as how our administration goes, is we do have intake in one source, and that would be through our website forms. So whether you are an individual applicant or whether you're registering with a consultant or whether you have found a job first, you all come through that same portal, and that comes to our screening. We're open all the time, which has advantages and disadvantages. Advantages is that advantage and disadvantages that we have lots and lots of applicants, probably a couple hundred to 1,000 a month. The world record that we've had was 1,700 in a weekend, but that was an anomaly for us. It was just a wild weekend. But we do go through lots of applicants, which give us a lot of people to choose from. And from there, it would be similar to the other MP&P programs as far as I'll interview all of them, or I don't interview all of them. I'll interview kind of the ones that are selected as best applicants, best qualifying, and then they go to a selection committee and move on from there. Another thing that's maybe unique about our program is that we do need exploratory visitors from a lot of our applicants are required to come on exploratory visit, and that was how it was set up, and we kind of like it that way. So that's why we're continuing with that. And that's it for me for now.
Thank you, Shelley. Excellent. Thanks. Christine, or do you like Maria? What do you like better?
Hi, everyone. Christine Dunn is fine.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Good morning. So our project is just in the gestation period. So we're actually just in the process of collaboration with the province right now. But the purpose of the initiative is basically the same cause, which is to address the rural need for the labor shortage. And so we're in the process of going through with the terms of reference with the province of Manitoba. But I think that I could say it's unique in its way because we have 8 communities that are on board on this. And the biggest challenge is that selling the program to the communities who have no idea yet or no knowledge about how immigration works. And so convincing them to be a part of this was the biggest challenge, but it worked out great. So we have 8 communities on board, and we are lucky that we have a Francophone community and an Indigenous community that are on board in this. So it's pretty much, we don't know where we're going yet. So it's still a learning process, and I'm very happy that everyone that I'm reaching out to, communities that have already been doing this, have mastered this, are very helpful. So not much to say yet with the program. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
Christine. Thanks, Christine. And I love the line, I don't know where we're going yet. I wish you a wonderful journey of discovery as you do that. This question is also for everyone, and we're going to reverse the order. Again, it might not be fair as Christine's is just beginning, but what's the role of good settlement services in your community in welcoming newcomers and helping with retention and helping them to get settled? What role does settlement services play as you partner with them and welcome newcomers to your community? Christine, are you okay going first, or do you want me to pick on somebody else?
Yeah, I can go on first. That's fine.
Okay.
As I said, I serve as the settlement facilitator for a while, and so I know exactly how critical and significant that role is. Once a newcomer comes to the area, everything starts with them, and they kind of depend on you. To be honest, they almost depend on you with their life in there, because you navigate them through all the process, what's going on in the community, and they anchored to you for basically everything. And to be honest, it's not just facilitating them with paperwork. I kind of think that we open a whole can of worms once you embrace them, like, oh boy, you're actually helping the entirety of the aspect of the human being as they move into that in that community. But I think the most important thing is the little things that we do for them that we don't really think that it matters to them is what really has an impactful in their lives. Personally, and the challenges are a lot more, a lot more in rural areas. We all knew that because there's an issue of transportation. There's a need for consular matters that you needed as a settlement facilitator. You need to be updated with that. And how is IRCC always changing the rules? You have to be updated with that, but you're also very limited because you're not an immigration officer, you're not an immigration consultant, but you need to give them the exact or the right information because they banked on that. So I think housing, and everyone could agree with that, housing is our biggest challenge. So we will always have to, I think the gap is how can we collaborate smoothly with everyone that's involved with housing, the national, like the CMHC, Manitoba housing, you know, how do we collaborate? I think that's the gap in between, because we're always groping for answers like, okay, when this family arrives, how do I connect them to Manitoba housing? So there's like, for me personally, we haven't established that connection, you know, and also a more in-depth consular collaboration. And I've seen that with the Ukrainian community that we've been assisting with. I think that's more of what I can say from my experience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shelley,
Okay, a lot of our programs are fortunate enough to be within the catchment area of our Regional Connections Settlement Services offices. And that's a great organization that's apart from all of our municipalities, running independently with their offices in a lot of our communities. So we do have a Regional Connections Settlement Services office that does a lot of the settlement work once people are here. So within a week or two, they end up having an intake appointment with Regional Connections. And in that appointment, they get set up with things like getting their kids registered for school and getting their health cards applied for, any other paperwork, some job hunt ideas and mentoring, credential recognition. They really do take it once people arrive and are settled. How us as a municipality fills a little bit of the gap is between the time that people know that they're arriving and the time that they end up at Regional Connections. So that's a long week or two for people that are moving to a new area, especially if you don't know anybody or haven't been there before. So how we step up as a municipality is we do offer airport pickup for them. So there's going to be someone at the bottom of the escalator at the Winnipeg airport waving a flag, welcoming them to Morden, putting them in our Morden van and bringing them out. As a municipality, we also have 9 or 10 transition apartments on the go. And like the rest of you, housing is an issue in a lot of our communities. And having a transition apartment that's furnished that they can rent until they find something is a much less stressful way of coming in and moving into a motel or needing to find something before they arrive. So they pay rent on that. And it's much less than a motel and about market rate for apartments. And as a municipality, we try to break even on those. So that's something else that we do. We make sure that the apartments are stocked with a couple of days worth of groceries and bedding and linens and towels and kitchen supplies and things like that, so they can come and just crash when they get here. Yeah, that's it for us.
excellent. And Shelley, I hope your staff use the hug rug at the Winnipeg airport and welcome people as they come down the escalator.
It's a great hug rug, yeah.
It sure is. Stephanie.
So I will echo kind of what Shelley did say. I'm not going to repeat everything, but we also work really closely with Regional Connections when it comes to the settlement aspect of our newcomers. We also partner with Regional Connections to provide the community mentorship program. So this program connects the newcomer and their family with an established member of the community based on similar age, hobbies, and interests. In addition, newcomers are also supported by our office throughout the immigration process. Something I think that also makes RNEP unique is that we have direct access to an IRCC representative. So if there's any issues throughout the process for either the employer or for the applicant, we're able to contact IRCC directly to help assist them throughout the process. So also when a newcomer will arrive, they then feel connected to our office, to the settlement service provider, to their employer, and to their mentors. An area where we find that there has been a gap in our community is with respect to finding rental accommodations. There's not a lot of resources online for rental units. It's usually a word of mouth. So it makes it quite difficult for a newcomer to be able to find a place. So we'll try to assist them and point them in the right direction as much as possible with respect to that.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. And Mark.
So we are similar to Morden and Altona in terms of we lean pretty heavily, well, maybe not, we probably lean more heavily on regional connections than the other two offices that are in our area. So our office, so we're relatively new to this whole thing, having launched our program in the last year. So job one was to kind of set up all the front end, how to vet people and how to get people here. And then we've really leaned on regional connections to take the ball once somebody arrives. We do in our application process, understanding kind of the challenges with housing and some things like even English levels. So when somebody gets approved and they're in the process, we do communicate with them by email to give them access to the resources for rentals, all those things, so that they can do that search while they're in their home country. You know, we also talk about the importance of English, which is really important, and to maintain the highest level they can of English or to achieve a high level, because that's really important. And that leads to maybe a bit of a gap in the system at times that employers are going to run into. And that's, you know, I'm going to call it the cultural onboarding. So you have different cultures coming and employers are taking them in for work. And sometimes there's the need for some information in between there in terms of what's important to various cultures. And how do people work in Canada, which is very different too than some countries, right? So that's one of the gaps that we see is not outside of just kind of socially getting set up in the community, but getting ready to work. Because in our case too, that's a primary driver. We're an economic office trying to find those fits for our labor pool. So yeah, we don't do as many of the things like Shelley's group does, but those are things that we're looking into. So stage one for us was, let's get the program running and make those economic connections. And then as the program grows, let's see where those gaps are that we can fill in between regional connections and the employer community.
Really good. Thanks a lot. And Stephen.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, very similar to what Mark was just saying. Our program is quite new. We launched this in January, and we are kind of in that building it as it goes kind of phase and understanding where maybe some gaps are and learning along the way. But we have regional connections in Dauphin, which looks after the area, and we're leaning on them quite a lot when it comes to that settlement service and making sure that people are aware of what is in Dauphin, what's in the area, what's in these other communities, how to get them established and all those services and whatever the region provides. So we will work with them. Deb Sanowski was at the table since the beginning. It was great having her. The influence that her and Steve Reynolds were able to help with this program was excellent and much needed. Now Deb is gone. We're going to be working with Anna and the team there and continue to do that. But we will probably work closely with them to offer that. We won't be taking so much on our own for that. But as we go forward, we've only had a few, one batch of the applications we kind of went through. We're going to have another one coming up right away. And as we start seeing those folks coming through the program and landing in the region, we'll probably have to figure out what regional connections needs to be equipped with more when it comes to, maybe housing or what's happening in the other communities. And we'll have more of those conversations at the committee level to figure out what needs to be provided. And maybe some initial contact information from our part, which we try to establish right off the start. We have everything built up on the website for research to be done by applicants or anybody interested in seeing what the parkland's about. It's all on there and links directly to everybody's websites so they can do whatever research they need to be done initially. And yeah, again, regional connections is going to be our easy go-to answer and partner there for that one.
So everybody, Regional Connections is an amazing settlement program that has a really huge reach, all the way from southern Altona, Morden, Winkler, all the way up to Churchill, believe it or not. But there are about 15 other organizations in Manitoba that provide settlement services or language programs or local immigration partnerships. And I put my website, Manso website, in the chat. And if you're from another part of the province that there's not a regional connections office, you can find it there and find out what might be your settlement program or your language program. But Regional Connections is excellent. And I'm not saying that because there's 2 or 3 of those folks in the room. They are a strong program that do really good work. Next question is for Stephen. Could you share with us how you identified the need for an immigration initiative, and who were your key connections, or what were your key connections?
Yeah, so this was actually quite a few years ago, and I can vividly remember this conversation happening on the corner of in downtown Dauphin near the post office, and I can remember having this chat over the phone with Deb Sanowski with Regional Connections, and I'm asking her, like, what's happening in southern Manitoba, and we're seeing this trend kind of happening where there's a lot of settlement happening from Morden. Obviously, we're catching a lot of attention there, and all of that area south of Winnipeg. But then we're seeing a big influx of newcomers coming to Neepawa. And how does Dauphin kind of get ready for that? And I'm having this chat with her, and she says, well, it happens organically, but for those major developments, it needs to be taken on as a proactive approach, and there needs to be work done by the community itself. So I think she connected me with VJ or however that worked at the province there, and some very slow initial conversations were had, and we're trying to just it wasn't exactly a priority at the time, but just kind of keeping that going. And quite a few years later, maybe let's fast track. It's probably like 3 years ago, having a conversation with the city of Dauphin, Martine with economic development, and saying, hey, let's maybe there's an approach that we have to be taking here, and maybe we can start working on this collaboratively. And thanks to Martine and the city for kind of building that quickly, and taking on that chair role, and we developed that committee where we brought in all these communities. So we had 7 communities off the start. We had conversations with, and so St. Rose, Arm of Dauphin, City of Dauphin, Mossy River, which has a few communities in there, Gilbert, Grandview, and then now recently we brought in Roblin, and we were able to have these conversations with everybody at the table over the course of a couple of years, trying to figure out what that program looks like, working with the province, building our terms of reference, and then now come January, we're able to launch that. And working with the business community as well in that whole process, and understanding what are some of the gaps out there, who's experiencing major shortages when it comes to employment, what skills are needed, and that all just kind of comes together. And we knew going into it that obviously it's no surprise anywhere in the country or even North America, there's labor shortages to be had, and we knew we just needed to kind of collect that data and build this program to try to be piece of that equation that kind of helps those employers that are experiencing those shortages. And not that it's going to be a fast or the exact answer to solving it, but it is a piece of that equation. And like that conversation, 7 years ago or something like that with Deb, we had to take a proactive approach. So hopefully, as years go on, we see this program getting bigger and better. We learn along the way. We get more buy-in. There's more supports. The machine itself just keeps getting stronger, and more people want to immigrate to the region. And looking forward to that progress. And we've already seen some of that success already, and very excited about that. And can't wait for what the year looks like with our initial pilot launch here.
Yeah, and Deborah is a very good friend of mine and will remain friends, but I'm really sad she's left the sector and moved on to other things. A huge loss for your community, and congratulations to your community for making this happen. Lots of hard work, and congratulations. Christine, the next question is for you. As someone who assists and supports newcomers, how did your region assist the Ukrainians in your community? And can you share any unique challenges, successes that you've observed in assisting Ukrainians?
Okay, well, thank you, Don. We had quite, how many? We have 18 families as of now that we were able to settle, and this is just a matter of couple of years that we gone through the program. So it started with a big dinner that was created by the volunteers, and it was a Filipino-Ukrainian dinner. Over that night, we didn't really expect. I was just gonna go small, like maybe if I could just raise 10,000, that'd be fine. It's just like, but boy, over that night we raised 90,000 for the community. So from then on, the community, okay, this is going big. I think we need to work on this seriously. So we created a community we called Russell Area Welcome Committee, and this specifically focuses on the Ukrainian newcomers or the refugees. And we have, since then, the inception, we have been moving aggressively. So the beautiful thing about this is that we have assigned a family overseer. So if you have 2 families to look after, you focus on them, you look after the entirety of it. So, and I think also the beautiful thing about it is that we have reached out to other communities, like our indigenous community, the Gambler First Nation, was always really handy. They would offer us their vehicles to pick them up from the airport or at the Winnipeg, so wherever they land. So it was beautiful community work. And the biggest asset is that really when you have a beautiful community-based volunteers, is one of the gem in the community. And we have established that everything could be possible. And so we have also part of the team that are also, what I say, kind of bullheaded. They are like, we'll get things done. You know, we know that it is possible. So this team members would go to the offices of the consular matters for the Ukraine embassy. You know, they talk personally to that and say, hey, we have people that are coming to renew their passports. And it's sad because the Ukrainian embassy doesn't hold much of a consular outreach. So people were really forced to go either in Edmonton, in Calgary, or in Toronto to renew their passports. And we're lucky enough that we'll find volunteers to step on board. And also one of the things that we have done is we really tried our best to match their qualifications to when they get a job, we feel that they're on a good head-on start. And also we found that a lot of the Ukrainian kids that are, you know, it doesn't end there when you send them to the school. You think that was okay, but we found out that there are kids that are not able to assimilate well in the school because they have English language barrier. And so we were lucky that there was a Ukrainian lady that is in the process of getting her teaching certification, and she's actually been absorbed by the local school here, and she's actually teaching, devoting her time after school to teach these kids be able to express and assimilate in the school. And today we are lucky to have English classes hold in Russell area. And that's, we found the teachers for the English beginner class and the intermediate class. So that is through the process of the, one of the gem in our community is also the Westman Immigrant Services, is a settlement facilitating office here. And they do a lot for our newcomers, not only for the Ukrainians. And like I said, we, I think, so yes, the English class is doing well. We have 18 students for the English beginners, and we have also 15 classes for the English intermediate class. The local, also one of the benefits of that success is that the community ministerial or the religious group in the community was always supportive. So it doesn't really matter what religion. So we come together, we look after we provide them a good recreational time, and support them with the mental health awareness.
Okay,
I think that's what we'll do.
thank you very much. And yeah, the Ukrainian response in Manitoba has been unbelievable, as more than 25,000 Ukrainians have come. And I think there's lots of lessons learned from the community's Ukrainian response to crossover. And I love your multicultural approach, Christine, including the Filipino community, the Indigenous. Stephen was talking about Deborah. One of her lines from many years ago was that our Indigenous people were the first settlement workers in Canada. And how true is that? And there's so many lessons learned there. Shelley, the next question is for you. You mentioned retention strategies with staffing and how important that this is to these programs. Could you please elaborate on some effective strategy in your community that has been implemented to retain immigrants and newcomers in your community?
Sure, I love talking about retention. It's a passion of mine. So you'll probably have to blow the whistle when my time is up and pull me off stage. But from our perspective, retention is one of the more important parts in building a community that is truly multicultural. To have 5 people that stay instead of 15 people that keep rotating through. Those 5 people are joining the community. It takes a while to get onto boards and committees and leadership positions, and just the overall settledness of a newcomer community gives a better impression to the overall community instead of people coming and going. So that has always been a passion of mine and something that we've been able to tweak over the last 10 years to maintain what we feel is a really good retention rate. A lot of retention for us starts with who we're choosing, and that we've learned a lot of lessons the hard way over time about who stays and who goes and what we're looking for. When we're looking through people, employment obviously is the reason why a lot of us have programs. So just making sure that people are matching up with the jobs that are there. And what we've kind of learned the hard way over time is that when people say, I am an engineer, but I would really like to be a woodworking machine operator, those aren't our best woodworking machine operators. To try to find people at the level of the job that they're coming in. And if they have a different level job that takes higher English or has higher skills, that they come in with the ability to work in that job. So employment would be one. Language would be another. We all have very similar minimum language requirements through MP&P, but we consider that a minimum. The higher people's language is, the better that they're able to integrate into the community. Connections is important, and that's something that we've learned over time as well. As someone saying, I was referred to Morgan's program. It looks beautiful. I think this is heaven for me. I would like to go. I have a brother in Calgary, but I really don't want to live there. Is something that those kinds of conversations we have a lot. And it is much safer to choose people that have connections in our area already or don't have connections elsewhere, because it's just when you land and it's new and you have a brother elsewhere, it just makes retention a lot harder.
30 seconds, Shelley. 30 seconds,
Sorry?
okay? 30 seconds. Keep going, but 30 seconds.
Okay. Through the process, we keep people connected to us so that when they land, we really are their best friends. And from the time they come on exploratory visit, we've got some great staff in our office that are really social, and they're on social media, and just keep connecting with them. So, I'll get a message on a Saturday saying, look, I made soup from Nigeria. These people really are connected to us and to each other. We have social chats with groups of people. So when they get here, they really feel like they belong to the community already. And so much more to say about retention. We'll catch you on a private chat sometime.
Perfect. And we are being so conscientious about time because we're building in time for all of you to ask questions. And I have received one question. So if you want, you can either fire questions into the chat, to the open chat, or directly to me. It does not matter. But that's why we're being so conscientious about time. And Shelley, if I was doing retention in Morden, I also talk about your golf course, which is one of the best in the province. So
It is
yeah,
nice, yes. Got a new
yeah,
clubhouse coming up.
I know it's beautiful. The pictures look amazing. So
Looks good so far, yeah.
yeah, Mark, the next question is for you. Could you provide some insight into your regional approach in the cooperation between the business sector and local leadership to meet workforce needs? How did you manage this interest and build on it? And what is the applicant flow?
Okay, so as I tried to kind of lay when my first introduction to the program was to give you an outside view of how this thing works. So we're regional, and so that means our program doesn't work on a job offer exploratory visit. Those are very valuable in our process, but they're not core central. So we have to work very closely with the business community to understand what are those jobs that they need to fill today, and then what are the ones that they have a hard time filling regularly. So this is the regional approach. Now we have a lot of businesses in our area. We're very fortunate there in the RM of Stanley and the city of Winkler. So one of our challenges is how do we connect with them to get that real-time data? As everybody I'm sure knows, nobody likes to complete surveys, but you're trying to get this information. And so that's a real important element to this program is how do you engage the business community in a deeper way, not just, here's our answers, because they're really the heartbeat of the program. So we do, so in that connection with the business community, we do a survey every fall. And what I always recommend to people when you're engaging your business community is make sure you go out and personally deliver that survey the first time, sit down with them and ask them about their business, because they need to understand kind of the program. Some people have had, maybe not the best results with immigration through some of the federal programs taking too long, and the process is super difficult to navigate. So it's important to sit down with them and engage them on a business level, if that makes sense. What else did you want to know? Applicant flow, how does that work? And Don, am I kind of correct on that? How do we manage the flow, or what would you like to hear on that?
Yeah. What's your process? And then I might have a follow-up question for you, because the regional approach is great.
Yeah, okay. So applicant flow, I think, as I mentioned, right now that our challenge is that there's the demand is way higher than the supply, which all the programs will realize. So how we try and manage that is through our portal process, in terms of only taking in those that we can specifically actually vet through in an expedient time frame. So our program has an annual allotment from the province of Manitoba for 150 families per year. So we designate a certain amount that we'd like to see coming from, let's say, a portal source, so anywhere in the world. But then we also want to leave some aside for the business community to engage us directly. And we want to be able to use this program directly for them when they have an opportunity, and also for the community. So we manage our flow in a couple of ways. We kind of identify targets from sources, and then because the online application process becomes so significant, we have to manage that opening and closing so we can vet properly. We always felt we'd rather have time to look at an application and when somebody submits one, then have them submit one and wonder, where did it go? Did somebody see it? Is someone reading it? So that's been our process with that.
Really good. And I'll save the follow-up question for another time, to be fair to you. But it's coming back. If others don't ask questions, I got a question for you.
Ready for you.
Stephanie, you're next. Please share information on the RMED program. How does the kind of defined work? Explain the criteria and the requirements of an employer and candidates to come together, and how the whole process works. What factors set the RMED up different than provincial nominee program?
Sure. So as I had mentioned earlier, the newcomer is arriving in the community with a full-time permanent position. So the RMED program is employer-driven. If a business is interested in hiring through the program, they must contact our office first to arrange an employer pre-screening meeting to ensure that both the employer and the position that they're looking to fill meet the criteria of the RMED program. So in order to be an eligible employer, They have to be located within the town of Altona or municipality of Rhineland, and the duties of the position must take place within the boundaries as well. They have to have considered Canadians and permanent residents first to fill the job. As mentioned, the position has to be full-time, non-seasonal, and permanent, and the wage has to be equal to or greater than the minimum wage as set out in the federal job bank for that specific position. Also, of course, the business has to be not known to be in violation of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act and or provincial employment standards. So once we've met with the business and determined that the position and the employer are a good fit for the program, we will then upload their job posting onto our website for applicants from all over the world to review. So applicants must create a candidate profile on our website. We currently have over 100,000 candidate profiles created. They then upload their resume and apply to a job posting in which they have qualifying work experience. So in order to have qualifying work experience, applicants require 1 year of continuous work experience or 1,560 hours worked in the past 3 years. So they must have conducted most of the main duties and all of the essential duties listed in the job postings NOC code. We would then forward the applicant's resume to the employer and they conduct their normal hiring practices. Upon satisfaction, the employer provides an offer of employment to the successful applicant and provides a copy of that job offer to our office. It's at that time that we contact the applicant and we start the process for community recommendation. With respect to community recommendation, we interview the applicant to determine their intention to reside in the community. And that typically consists of myself and a member from our vetting committee. So our vetting committee consists of representation from both the town of Altona and municipality of Rhineland, as well as regional connections. So when an applicant receives community recommendation, they're then able to apply for their permanent residence. Once they've received a letter of acknowledgement from IRCC, they can then apply for a closed work permit and come to Canada on the work permit while their PR is being processed.
Excellent. And I sure am glad that this is a virtual room because then I only owe everyone a virtual dollar, not a real one. But Stephanie, we use the acronym RNIP. I started it without explaining what RNIP is. And
Okay.
so can you explain that and give a very brief description?
Sure, yeah. So RMED stands for the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program. It's an extensive title, so we have abbreviated it to RMED.
Exactly. And there's about 15 communities. You know more about this than I do, Stephanie, and 2 in Manitoba, right? You and Brandon.
There's 11 communities that are participating, and then within Manitoba, yeah, correct. It's Brandon and Altona Rhineland.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. And sorry for using an acronym and not explaining it to everyone. So we have a couple of questions. This is your time now as our participants, so don't be afraid to ask questions. And so we have a question from somebody who directed it, private directed it to me. Are these applicants dealt differently at IRCC level, and how long does the immigration process take generally? So if someone enters your program, how long is the process before they're a permanent resident? To become a permanent resident? Anybody? Yeah.
I can speak to the RNIP processing time.
Perfect.
So IRCC has given us 1 year. So from the time that an applicant applies for their PR, it will take approximately 1 year for them to receive it.
Excellent, thanks. And the rest of your provincial nominee programs, would it be similar? Shelley, I see you unmuted. That's excellent.
Sure, I can take a wild guess at the MP&P process. It depends on so many things, obviously. What we usually do is start counting once they come on an exploratory visit, or if they have a job offer and don't need an exploratory visit, when that is given to MP&P and their process starts there. We'll usually see people who have federal express entry profile numbers coming back about within a year. And that would be with permanent residents. If they don't have a federal express entry profile number, then it's longer than that. And that is really hard to guess, probably something like more like 18 months or longer.
Anybody else want to talk about that? All right.
I can,
yeah.
John, I can
Oh,
just, we're
oh.
relatively new on it, but I would kind of echo what Shelley's saying as well, that, you know, our processing time here from vetting a candidate, so our processing would be, you know, once the application is received and it goes through our economic review, we have a community review, that can take, you know, let's say 6 weeks. And then, you know, once there's an invitation to apply that comes from the province, we add that all together, that might be 2 to 3 months, and then it enters the system, which I think then it becomes, what's the workload at MPMP? And then as it moves on to the federal level, what's that workload? So yeah, I think overall a year to 18 months is kind of the thing.
Really helpful. Anybody else want to talk about that? Also, all of our participants, as we ask these questions, if you have some insights, please just raise your hand and let's learn from you too. All right, now a question. Apart from the community volunteer solution, have you identified any other solutions to counter the transportation problem and address the fact that new arrivals don't have a car when they arrive? This is such a huge issue. Let's hear how creative you've been helpful to solve that.
I can, do you want me to weigh in there? So for us in the, or at least in the city of Winkler, they did a transportation study in terms of quite extensive in terms of seeing where the primary flows of traffic are. And they're going to do a pilot transportation project where there'll be community services for that, because when people come, they typically, you know, they don't have a driver's license and they don't have a car. So that becomes really significant. So that's one of the ways that at least the city of Winkler is looking at approaching that.
Excellent. Yeah, go Shelley.
Yeah, it is a huge problem, especially in winter. Thankfully, everything in Morden is a 10-minute walk from the next place. But one way that we try to make it a little bit less of a problem from the upstart is right at the beginning of the process, be it exploratory visit or online interview. It's, do you have a driver's license? Does your spouse have a driver's license? If any of that is no, it's get your driver's license in your home country. It's a lot easier to switch that driver's license over when you first get here than start at the beginning. So we have a lot of people in different countries that are learning to drive and are doing that before they get here. And we also have them do some budgets before they arrive at the beginning of the process, just as part of their settlement plan. And that budget, they'll have $10,000 or whatever for a used car and driver's license. So they're kind of expecting to get a car when they come, and it obviously doesn't work for everybody, but we try to help some of that from the beginning.
Anybody else want to speak to this?
I'll just point out that I like Shelley's question, and I'm probably going to be using that a little bit more in my interviews is, do you have a driver's license? So thanks for that one. But yeah, for us out here, again, communities are, if you can find work in one community to another, so that could be posing a challenge where if you're moving from and living in a different place than where you're working, that could be a challenge. But the communities themselves within the area are easy walking distance, but who wants to be walking when it's -40 and you're coming from a climate that you're not used to that, so not so great. So yeah, challenge definitely is transportation, and I think it's probably coming from a community approach. Definitely in the city of Dauphin, it's been a conversation that's been ongoing for some time, and what that solution is, we don't know yet, but I'm sure some bright minds will figure that out at some point. But yeah, some trial and error, I would imagine, and some experimentation when it comes to what that service needs to be and looks like, but we'll get there eventually. But thanks, Shelley. I'll just round it back. Appreciate that question, or that, yeah, that question.
Has anybody in rural Manitoba tried a car co-op like Winnipeg Car Co-op? I think that's a model that we can steal from. It's just a matter of scale. Has anyone tried that? Do any of our guests know if that's ever been tried? All right, I think that's a possible one. I can also say I mostly live, work, and play in Portage la Prairie. We really expanded our active transportation stuff, which includes more pathways, making sure people can get places, and even includes a bike maintenance shop outside, a stop outside. So you can get your bike fixed. That includes air and wrenches, and it's all on our Red River campus, which is kind of central in Portage la Prairie. It's pretty brilliant, and apparently it's being used lots in the summer. So I think that's good stuff. Yeah. Well, look in the chat. Some people are working on a car share initiative. And purchased a Ford Lightning. Isn't that the electric truck? Isn't that what the Ford Lightning is? There you go. Wow. Go, Mark.
Just a thought on that. When we look at labor pool, we have a significantly retiring baby boomer population. And I think communities should look at how do we leverage that group and maintain their activity. Now, I know that maybe there's a way that they can kind of volunteer and do transportation, and not understanding maybe some of the liabilities or risk factors with that. Of course, those are things that have to be vetted, but I think communities need to look at the retiring population and find a way to keep them engaged in the community and use that resource. So that might be something, that might be an avenue to work into.
With what Mark is saying, it reminded me of the service for seniors model, where seniors pay like $6 for a ride somewhere, and maybe there could be a service for community members. And as more and more people retire, and they kind of get a little bit of their gas and a little bit of their maintenance paid for driving folks around, a little bit of their coffee money. So yeah, there's lots of creative ways to do this. I think the days of big bus systems are going to be over unless there's way more money come in. And Shelley, go.
Just to add to the using seniors and using people from the community, the other advantage of that is we found at the beginning, when we were just starting to introduce a multicultural aspect to Morden, is that the more that we used people in the community that didn't have a lot of previous involvement with newcomers, the more the community just opened up to being welcoming and not being afraid of change. Because if there's people in the coffee shop talking about negative things to do with immigration, and that there's somebody that I just did an airport pickup for this family, and we all cried about how much we loved our kids on the way home, and there really are like us, like just to have voices that maybe wouldn't have had that response. And the more you can use people in airport pickups and mentorships, and we even had host families when Ukrainians were coming in, because we ran out of transition apartments, to have them living in other people's homes, and just using that as much as possible is just great for the community.
Excellent. All right, this question can be for anybody, but I remember, Mark, I told you I had a follow-up question. In your regional approach, were there any municipalities that were not that excited about this and not that welcoming? And how did you work with those, or did you not have that? Or has anyone come across that there's local municipal governments or feedback that they're not that excited about immigration? And how did you bring them on board?
Yeah, so for us, so we're a joint, so our extension is the City of Winkler and the arm of Stanley. So we didn't have multiple groups that we need to bring to the table. And so they were both pretty on board with this idea. I think to overcome any hesitation, right, one of the things to look at is just, I mean, we look at the economics of communities and labor pool, and we know that there's more people leaving the workforce than are coming in. And so what's really important to any community's health is how strong is their economy. And so because of this drain out of people, you need to refill that. And so you have to have a real economic dialogue with people in terms of why are some of these things here? Because there's challenges with it, of course. But the economic factor, I think, can take out some of the stigmas or misconceptions about this whole process. I think everybody is on the same page when it comes to economic health and viability, if that makes sense. So that would be definitely something that I would anchor my conversation around in talking to a community who maybe has some hesitation on it.
Excellent, really good. Anyone else want to answer that question? Communities or people that are not open to this idea? Yeah, go, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the hesitation side of things. If you've got communities in the area that are currently working on this or want to get working on this, I would say just come to the table and be supportive and make it happen. When it came to our approach, everybody was on board with it. It was an easy conversation to get everyone around the table. And now there's that continued committee work that's happening, but also there was financial commitment for seed money to get all this happening. So yeah, our region was particularly supportive of this and very positive from the get-go. And yeah, anybody out there that is looking at this program, I would say, or something similar to it, would just yeah, work with some partners and make it all a regional approach and take it on themselves. It's a wonderful process.
Excellent. Anybody else want to answer that question? Yeah.
Dawn, I just have a question to the panel. Have you found that other municipalities are reaching out to you to be part of your existing project? Has that happened in some of the more experienced communities where you have more interest from surrounding communities to join you?
We get a lot of interest from other communities and just learning from ours. So we end up talking to people a fair bit that are at the beginning of the process, but most of them are further away, and you know, the regionalization really hasn't come up.
And Christine, you were going to answer this question, I think, and the previous one. So you go for a while. You get a little bit of time. Oh, you have mute on, Christine. You got to buy coffee again for everybody.
Sorry. Thank you, Don. When we were doing an information session for communities, it's kind of new to this area in the West Central Manitoba part, and the thing is that there's not a lot of big industries in here that would really give us a reason to have a pool of workers. So it's a little bit here, sorry, a little. So there's a lot of hesitation because who would come to an area like this, and then what are my chances? Like I'm a small business owner. I just need two mechanics, two automotive mechanics, and what are my chances? You know, I'm fighting with the people that wants to live in the city, and so this is the resistance that you would usually get from business owners, and you kind of just explain to them that it is possible. At the back of their head, they really think it's impossible. So little by little, we're trying to give them open the doors of inclusiveness to their community. You know, there's a very close-knit communities that's really hard to penetrate, but when you give them that, like Mark said, you really have to sit down with them, you know, and talk to them in heart, like what you really need is like, oh, and when you start talking about immigration, you know, and you talk to the people who have been in business for the last 50 years, and there's like, oh, that's not happening, you know, they always start with this negative approach. And that is the biggest challenge for us to how do we turn around this conversation to become more. So they were adamant to even try to fill out the labor market survey, you know, that's just another government strategy that we don't know is really happening or not. So we are on the brink of we really have to prove something that is happening. And so what I would tell them is I would give the website of other communities that already been doing this. So sorry if I didn't ask permission from you guys, but I did that. So that gives them the perspective like, oh, I never really thought about this. And like, I can't believe that this is happening in Altona, this is happening in Winkler, you know, and in Dauphin. So, and that spreads the fire, I would say, like, we want to be on board in this. So it was easier to give them that understanding if you just show that there are previous successes. And that's from my own personal experience.
That's outstanding. Either question, does anyone else want to add to? Yeah, Stephanie first and then Mark.
Yep.
Sure. So I'll just add a couple of comments. When we first received the RMED program, I right away reached out to Shelley. She's been doing this for a long time. So I reached out to her for some advice and some guidance. We did also receive some interest from some of the surrounding communities to see if there's opportunity to make this a regional approach program. However, based on the way our economic development group is funded, which is equally half by the town of Altona and the municipality of Rhineland, it didn't make sense for us to go much larger or beyond that. Something else, just to a previous question that was asked, if there's any pushback from the municipalities, ours was nothing but supportive. Both of our municipalities significantly stepped up to help support our economic development group to increase the funding and allow for us to hire additional staff, onboard different software programming that helps us to administer the program. So they were nothing but super supportive of the immigration program. That's it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. Really good. Mark?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add too in terms of this process, and we've talked a little bit about English and there's program minimums, but the stronger your candidates can communicate in English, the more impressed, people have an expectation, and if they're above that expectation in the way they communicate, they're like, wow, this is great. And so it's really important process to, have those candidates that can communicate well, because you'll interview them virtually and you'll meet them online. And if it leads to an employment offer, they'll meet them too. And so I think that just can surprise some people with a great first impression if someone speaks really well. And then that eliminates tons of, question marks that people can have. I've just found that. So sometimes with certain levels, some positions out there, like when you're trying to find a mechanic, they might not have the opportunity to learn their English as much where they live, but that's okay too. But I just found that English is a real, quality of English really overcomes some barriers that people might have, some pre-existing conditions or expectations.
Thanks for that, Mark.
Yep.
All right. I have a question. I mentioned earlier, I'm a basketball ref. I'm actually the supervisor of officials for Central Manitoba. Last year, in the high school season, we refereed 100 more games than we ever refereed before. And I think that's a direct result of immigration in Central Manitoba, from Gladstone all the way down to the American border, west to Glenborough and east to Morris. I think it's a direct result of immigration. What are some of the community benefits of immigration that you've seen in your communities as newcomers arrive? And how is it changing your community for the better? And what are some of the struggles? But I really want to hear, how is it making your communities better? We all know the economic reasons for immigration, but there's cultural and community reasons also. And what are some of those? What are some of the other benefits? Anybody? Christine. Christine, just wait, Christine, Shelley, Mark. Okay, we have an order. So go, Christine. Sorry for cutting you off.
I have so far, I'm not speaking because I'm an immigrant, but so far,
You can.
I'll be a bias. I have to pick it from the other side of the court. So far, in the community that I live in, I have never heard of anything negative. I think because I think we started it on the right foot, and it really also depends upon the community, how welcoming or how the understanding of the community. I know there's still a lot of resistance that will come in, but raising that awareness to everyone that there's no really difference whether you are an immigrant or a newcomer to a local, And speaking from my own perspective, when I started as a temporary foreign worker, and I was assisted by our local settlement facilitator at the time. The employer was very hesitant. This is speaking from the typical Canadian setup. So my employer is a Canadian, is local. She was very adamant because I don't want to go through the whole process of paperwork. And that's always the first word of locals. I don't want to go to tons of paperwork. And that depends on how dedicated your settlement facilitator is. And she said, just take her, Kathy, and who knows, if you treat her well, she might stick around. And I'm here for the last 14 years. And that is my very own experience. But and the people that I have worked around and I've seen for the last 14 years, they are still here and they are growing. They're growing and becoming, and now they're assimilating to other careers, and then you see the potential, and what they can bring into the table. They set a new perspective in the community. As an economic development officer, I would be the first Filipino that they ever hired. And that was always the first question. What can you bring on the table as a newcomer, as an immigrant? What do you know about economic development in Canada's setup? It's like, we can learn, you know. I think the benefit is that we bring a fresh set of eyes, that you guys, you've been born and raised here, but sometimes we don't just appreciate what is around, the minute things that we don't appreciate. So we've seen that, we bring that to the table, and we bring that into the bigger picture. And that's how we contribute, or that's how we complement, is letting them see how they should appreciate their community from a different perspective.
That's
Thank you.
beautiful. That's beautiful, Christine. Thank you. And just before Shelley speaks, to our participants, you're our participants, not an audience. So if you would like to ask this question, answer this question, just raise your hand and we'll get you in, okay? So it'll be Shelley, then Mark, and we'll go from there. Shelley.
I'm actually okay passing that off to Mark right away. I put my hand up just to make sure the question was answered. And there was a couple of people that jumped in, so I'm good.
Okay. Okay, well, you were asking, how does this impact the community culturally? And I think one of the things that's really important is, we're becoming the internet in the world is getting a smaller and smaller place. And I think it's really valuable to meet people from different cultures and see what that's all about. And I think what it does is it just makes stronger citizens and stronger people getting out into the world from their community. And so I think that's hugely valuable when kids are going to school with other kids from other countries and all this. And I think there's just, I think that's a huge benefit in terms of putting out, let's call it, better global citizens, that know people and get to meet people. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. Yeah.
That's valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, go Stephanie.
I'll just jump in here too. So you mentioned an increase in basketball. Altona has always been known for being a baseball and a hockey town. And so we've seen a significant increase as well in the baseball program and soccer, as well as cricket, which has been a new sport that's been introduced to the community. We also have a Filipino restaurant now in Altona as well, and we've received additional interest in other cultures who are looking at setting up different types of food options. So we're definitely seeing that the newcomers and the multiculturalism taking place in the community is contributing and benefiting everybody. Even some of our newcomers who came in through the mentor or had the mentorship program are wanting to be mentors themselves now to others that are coming in. So that's also really great to see them giving back.
That's beautiful. And Stephanie, I don't know if you know this, one of the high school girls teams were provincial champions. I don't remember if it was the varsity girls or the grade 9-10 girls, but one of your school girls teams were provincial champions this year. So hockey, baseball, and basketball town, that's what Altona is. Anybody else want to answer this question? Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, just tremendous amount of positive impacts from all of this, where you get obviously the jobs are getting filled and you're seeing that, but then also businesses are getting purchased or new businesses are getting created. So that's positive and wonderful to see. We're also seeing other opportunities come up where it's like catering, and so now you've got these different food options that are available to the community that you can access, and then events. So kind of again talking with Deb about different things that we can do in the community and supports and stuff like that. And it's always the dream that those communities within the community are taking responsibility and kind of charge and want to do their own thing. And then recently we just saw our first Festival of Lights happen here. And the hall was rented and a big group of people. So there's those cultural experiences that everyone can kind of now take a part in, and those members are here and they can celebrate their own cultures within these communities and have that freedom to do so and want to do that, and it's accepted, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And then we've also got our local brewery that is just open to all sorts of different activities, and we're seeing Filipino nights happening, so karaoke and food coming in. So again, just mashing cultures together and people getting to celebrate and take part in things. So it's
Steve, your mute came on right at the end, Stephen. I don't know if you want to finish your thought, but your mute came on.
Yeah, I hit an extra button there, but yeah, just everything just coming up positive. It's wonderful to see everyone getting together like that.
Yeah, this is definitely not the Manitoba that was around 20 years ago. Both through basketball and through golf, I travel Manitoba lots, and the way communities have changed is unbelievable to me and so much better. Anybody from the community, and Miriam's comment in the comments is beautiful and meaningful, that she agrees with Christine, and newcomers play a vital role in the growth of the community, in the richness of the community, and embracing them with open arms and integrating their contributions lead to a stronger, more dynamic community for everyone. That is so true.
I saw we had a guest on, Dawn. I'm not sure if she's still on there, Melanie Specula from the Gimli
Yeah.
region. And they've had a lot of success with working with the Ukrainian community. And I'm not sure, I saw Tammy Jodik was on here, if she had anything more to add. I know Community Futures was partially involved in some of the interests that were brought around into the community and working on business development with some of those newcomers. It's been very successful in that region as well, and they've done a lot of new business startups that are very unique to the community.
I don't see, is Melanie still here? I don't see her.
I don't think she's on there, and I'm not sure if Tammy is still alive either.
The work that Melanie.
I'm still here.
Oh, go Tammy.
Yeah,
Go
Tammy. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm still here listening. Really excited just to hear all the great work that's been going on. But yeah, definitely have seen a change in the landscape. Like when you talk about on the business community, we're definitely seeing that. Seeing that a lot of businesses now have been bought and are being run and started also, we're starting to see. So definitely a lot of exciting stuff happening there. Gimli is and the Arborg area. I was actually, while you guys were talking, I was thinking about all the stuff that's been in the paper. There's been a lot of really positive stories, especially with the healthcare community, and Arborg's really been really supportive of that. So done some really great work there that you've seen. Those are the ones that come to mind. So, but again, just really excited to hear everything that everybody's been sharing today.
Yeah, and some of the challenges that you've probably seen too, Tammy, is on the lending side and trying to sort through some of that with the newcomers and starting businesses. But Community Futures works to make that happen too. So lots of great resources out there.
Yeah, for sure. So something that I've been seeing now that the 3 year with the when the Ukrainians came, the original, and again, I'm no expert on this, but the way their visas were, there was a problem with them being able to start a business and still get their hours where they were considered. So now the people that have sort of done that 3-year hump or 3-year I don't know the right word, but the 3 years that they have to do, they definitely are starting now to start businesses. We're definitely seeing that now too. But there was a bit of an issue in the beginning, but that seems to be cleared up now. So.
Just 2 quick stories. I've entered the settlement sector 10 years ago. My anniversary just came up last week. And one of the things I learned is that my way of doing things is not the right way. It's a Canadian prairie way, and that's it. There's a million ways to do things, and my world is so much bigger because being involved with newcomers. Second story, last year we had a Ukrainian family move close to me, not next door, close to me. I lent them my lawnmower to use it, and they had a 17-year-old kid who often cut my grass. So how good is that? That I never asked him to. He just used it and kept going. So often came home and my grass was cut. So hey, all of our panel guests, we're going to give you 1 minute on the way out to share your final thoughts or final dreams or hopes or wishes. And so let's start in the middle with Stephanie.
My hopes, dreams, and wishes. As people may know, the RMED program is set to expire at the end of July, and the federal government has announced 2 more pilot programs that will be running in the interim before they make the RMED program permanent. So we are hoping that we will be able to receive a secondary pilot program and continue to work on this. We have filled almost 130 positions through the RMED program, which is a population increase of over 350 people, including their spouses and their dependents. And it's been fantastic to see the community grow in the way that it has. So just continue to continue to do this work. It's been fantastic.
Outstanding. And Shelley.
On my unmute button, sorry. yeah, hopes, dreams, and wishes. I hope that Morden continues to be a friendly place for people to land, and as we get more and more newcomers and things continue to evolve, we're starting to see a lot more. As Tammy said, there's a lot more businesses that are starting, and that's been kind of one of our happy surprises with the skilled worker program. Is once they land, they work a bit and are interested in starting businesses. These are people that are willing to take risks. That's why they're coming to Canada for the most part. And we're starting to see, a lot of our buildings are being filled with new businesses, or some of the plans to pass on to the next generation are ending up going to newcomers. And that's one of our goals for the future, is to keep making sure that that kind of avenue happens.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelley. Stephen.
Before I forget, I gotta say thank you, Shelley, for all of your support through all of this. We wouldn't be where we're at without your help and guidance and insight to the success of your program to help create what we have here. I maybe didn't mention this. I didn't definitely mention this in our why we're unique in a way. And maybe it's unclear to some folks why the Parkland Chamber of Commerce is kind of talking about this immigration program. We're a partner in all of this with all the municipalities and some other organizations. But we leading into that planning, knowing that there needed to be an admin kind of role when we were executing the building of all of this public facing elements to Immigrate Parkland, and the vetting process and communicating with the province. So we took on that ourselves. I pitched that the chamber, because we were on the inside of building it all, we would take on that admin role. So that's where we were coming from. Operationally, going forward, I would love to see that this becomes part of the chamber, maybe with another office person, or part of the other dream, the pitch was that over time we would have to see this go somewhere else, where it's a division of its own, whether it's municipality or completely separate, that is funded in a way. So where it goes, I want to see this getting bigger and stronger and better. This pilot becomes more of a permanent pilot as we go forward, and we see that becoming its kind of own pillar of the chamber or some other entity. And then community-wise, just seeing more people come into Dauphin, to the other communities that are partnering. We want to see that, St. Rose is getting their fair share of newcomers, and Winnipegosis and Gilbert, Grandview, Roblin, and so on. And maybe we bring in some more partners and more communities that way, but just supporting those communities, letting people experience rural Manitoba, and creating what they can for a wonderful life in those communities, because there's tremendous amount of opportunity to be had in the Parkland, whether that's job creation or creating your own business, taking on, whatever roles that are there. And yeah, just want to see it all grow as much as possible.
Thanks, Stephen. Christine. It's very good, Steve. Christine. Yeah.
Hi. Yes, I'm really excited. Where is this gonna go? Thank you very much, Shelley, Stephen, Mark, and Stephanie, for all the support when I was at the point of doing this, collaborating this together, and expect that I would still be knocking on your doors. And for communities that are still in the process of thinking about this, although we haven't seen a recognizable benefit yet to this project, but we all know what the benefit of immigration and the addressing the labor shortage could do to a community. So one example is when I first approached a community of St. Lazare, and that's the Francophone community, they were definitely on board right away, because the St. Lazare is a slowly fading and aging community, and you could see it's kind of theory when I look at the community, the buildings are closed and all that. And so the people are trying their best. The people that are trying their best to revive the community. And so they brought in this, and they wanted to keep the Francophone school going. And that's kind of thing that holds them all together. So they hired the Moroccan teachers, and they were very lucky to have them. So that's the start. But I think the struggle and the reality struggle comes in because of they couldn't find housing, you know. And that's where the restrictions follows, and that's where the challenges that would come in. And we're not just in a fairy tale that there's a lot of challenges that would come in, but it also proves what kind of community can you set up, right? So the community set up right away. So it's an agitating factor in a good way. If you bring an immigrant, it's kind of like, okay, everybody roll up your sleeves and we're gonna do this. So sometimes it just takes one person to agitate the entire community to bring them up together. So overall, I would say it would give benefit. Definitely.
Excellent. Thanks, Christine. And Mark.
So looking ahead, I think what I would like to see out of our program is we elevate the awareness and connection of this program with our business community, help them understand that process. It's not as daunting as they might think. So get them more engaged, more awareness. And then I think beyond that, look for ways to support them in their onboarding process when they hire a new arrival, and give them those support tools so that their first experience is a real positive one.
Outstanding. Hey, I just want to thank all of our amazing panelists. Thank RMED for putting this together. Thank all of you for showing up, and I hope we honored your time. Deanna, do you want to say anything on the way out?
Yeah, for sure. And Stephanie, was there anything else that you needed to add there?
No,
No,
I don't
you're
think
good.
so.
Oh, I thought you, yeah,
Oh, no.
sorry. Yeah, thank you, Dawn. You're a great host. I really appreciated working with you. And thank you to our panelists, Stephen, Mark, Stephanie, Shelley, and Christine. What you provide in community is just outstanding. And this is what we need. We needed this in Manitoba for our communities, for our economies. It's creates that driver in support, and also for growth and diversity in communities. You see the cultural aspects and the fabric changing, and promoting that multiculturalism, which is such a successful and heartwarming feeling. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.